And welcome back to another episode of Pokemon Knowledge. Sometimes time flies, and a play that seemed relatively recent could actually have happened a pretty long time ago. But on today's video, I want to talk about the man, the myth, the legend himself, Professor Oak, and how he was the very first person to grade old maid cards. And there's going to be a reason that I'm making this video. But I asked Professor Oak if he wanted to come on tonight. He wasn't able to come on. So I'm just going to have to talk about what he did. I wish he could come on because I would want to hear some of like his insight into it. But I got some other videos that I really have to get out. One of those videos I have to get out tomorrow. So if you guys tune in tomorrow night, I'm going to be talking about the Chinese market again. And I know there's one Chinese box that is currently on a lot of people's tip of their tongue right now, and a box that they really want to know how is that box going to play out. There's a couple Chinese promos coming out recently, and if you guys have been following that Chinese market, it'll be interesting to see what happens. But so I want to go back in time a little bit because the title of this video is right, Carpe fucking Diem, because in this hobby, like, all you gotta do is just seize the day. And what does seize the day mean? It means you gotta just think a little bit outside of the box enough to be different. And there's really old stories. I mean, this isn't like a new topic. There's really old stories of people doing this. And people discovering things, or people capitalizing or utilizing things at certain points of the hobby. You know, some of the things that come to mind right away is like two things Rusty TCA Gaming did. He was the first person to ever discover FPO cards, so 4-position only cards, and then he was the first person to ever discover match print cards. So match print cards were the Expedition base set with like, they were like paper cards with the white back. These cards are still being talked about as recently as like last week. I want to say Cool Trainer Ryan made a video showcasing 2 cards of his collection, and they were those match print cards. And then as recently as today or yesterday, Rattle talked about a video where somebody took a match print Charmeleon as like collateral for a trade. This is cards that were discovered years and years ago, but are still being talked about today. And Professor Oak did something like that. He was the first to grade old maid cards. And, you know, we look at old maid cards now, and how many of those cards have been like in the total pop. So when Professor Oak did his original video, and if you guys want to know like what that original video is, in the description of this video, if you go down in it, there is a link to that original video. If you've never watched, I recommend you checking it out. But that original video was only posted 11 months ago. So pretty much like what happened was so first of all, old maid cards are not new. Old maid cards were decks that were sold in Japanese Pokemon centers in giant bins. We're not talking like these things were not rare. They were not scarce. They were not expensive. They were not sought after. They had nothing going for it. Literally, you could walk into your Pokemon center and they had like, imagine the big, tall hamper baskets. They had baskets like those filled to the brim of these things. Nobody wanted to buy them. There was no reason to buy them because they were very one-off things. They didn't sell for premiums on the secondary market. Like, from buying that thing in Japan to shipping it over in America, there was zero margin to them. There was nothing there, but they had beautiful artwork to it. They were all designed by the same artist. They had a lot of things going for it, and it just took one person to look at those cards and realize it. So, Professor Oak graded originally a Gengar, a Mew, an Eevee, a Squirtle, a Charmander, a top player, a Bulbasaur, and a Pikachu. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 cards in total, but he kept the Pikachu for his personal collection. And 7 of those 8 that he graded, he sent to PWCC. He figured it out on a spreadsheet in that video. His cost per card was 48 cents. You heard that number correctly. So when he originally were purchasing those, I told you, they were not sought after. So he was into each of those cards for 48 cents. His total cost into all those cards was $3.36. Now the thing was, he sent those away, the PSA to be graded. He sent them at the $30 tier because at the time, like the $18 tier existed, but he just wanted to get these fast, and he wasn't even sure if PSA was going to grade them because at the time the PSA pop report was 0 for these things. So Professor Oak took a chance. Now, this is a wild thing. He's into those cards for $3.36. It cost him to grade those cards $210. You heard that number correct. Technically, it cost him $240 because he included the Pikachu, but we're not going to talk about that because he didn't sell it. So it cost him $3.36 to purchase the cards, $210 to grade it. Carpe diem, season the day. So he took a shot, and he was like, you know what? I think these are pretty cool cards. I think other people are going to want these cards. So he took that chance. He sold, and then if you look at the thumbnail of this video, so this thumbnail's got a couple things going on. One, that Mew that is posted, that PWCC, that was his sale. He sold the Mew for $222. I just told you his cost for that card was 48 cents, and his cost to grade it was $30. So that brings him to a whopping total of $30.48. He sold that card for $222. The Gengar, the first Gengar to sell on market, sold for, and again, he sold all these in one auction. Gengar was $177 before buyer's premium. The Mew before buyer's premium was $192. After buyer's premium is $222, but it doesn't mean that people still paid $222. The Eevee, $86. The Squirtle, $67. The Charmander he sold for $59. The top player he sold for $48. The Bulbasaur he sold for $41, which meant the total dollar amount that he made off of those cards were $668. I just told you the cost for those cards raw were $3.36. And my man Professor Oak sold them for $668. With grading costs like removed, he made over $400 in profit. Over $400 on a card that has never been graded, that no one knew if they would want it. Cards that were not scarce, cards that were not rare, cards that it's wild. He did it. He took a chance. And now you look at population reports for those cards. You look at how many sales of those exist on eBay. Everyone who ever made $1 or a dime or a penny off those cards owes some sort of thank you to Professor Oak for that play. And not only did he do that, he was the first ever to grade Uno cards, all kinds of different stuff. He's still in the background figuring out all these things that he can grade. Shout out to, and then that's just one example. So he did that 11 months ago. Those decks were released in 2019. Those decks were released pre-boom. When people talk about the boom, they talk about October 2020 timeline period-ish when the Logan Paul box break happened and everything went crazy. Those cards were never graded in 2020. They were never graded in 2021. It took till the end of 2022 for those cards to get graded. That play was always out there. Just nobody capitalized on it because it goes to the title of this video again. Carpe fucking diem, like, seize the day. Nobody ever wants to seize the day. And there's another play that happened very, very recently. Shout out to Gengar Den. If Gengar Den's out there watching this video. So, he was one of the few people that sent the stamp box. So, obviously, you know the Japanese stamp box. It has that beautiful Pikachu full art card. It has that Cramorant card. People love both those cards. But it also came with a sheet of stamps. Like, right over there is that stamp box. In there is a sheet of stamps. It took, again, that thing came out years ago. It came out in 2021, that stamp box. And it took all the way till 2023 for somebody to just have the bright idea. Again, Carpe Diem, they were just like, you know what? What if I grade some of these stamps? I'll hand cut them. So there's two different variations of the stamps. There are the flat edge ones, and then there are like the traditional perforated like stamps. So there was one set that was graded, and then Gengar Den graded the non-perforated one and just took a pair of scissors, didn't have some fancy cutter, didn't have anything like that, just took literally a pair of scissors with his hands and cut out the 5 stamps. He graded 5 of those stamps. They all hit PSA 10s, and they do have that designation on the label. It's like Pokemon stamps hand cut. Like, PSA did realize these were hand cut, but it gave it that designation. PSA 10, they all hit. He was at Charlotte Collecticon. He couldn't sell those cards, or couldn't sell those stamps. He wanted, like, I think $500 for them. I don't know the exact number. I reached out to him before this video. I wanted to know, like, the exact dollar amount he was asking, but I think he was asking for $500. And at the time, nobody wanted to buy him. He came up to me on one of the like, not trade nights, but like one of the after party bars. He came up to me, told me all about these cards, and at the time he had information that no one else had. The information he had at the time was he had did that original batch of a couple stamps. They all hit PSA 10s. Then he said, oh, okay, they're great in these. Let me cut up all the rest of my stamps, and I'm going to send all those in. So he got his first submission back, and then he sent in like another 25. He's like, okay, they're great in these. I'm just going to send in 25, and maybe this will be a nice little play. I can make a couple bucks on these stamps. That will be cool. Well, his 25 card or stamp submission that he sent to PSA, while he was at Charlotte Collecticon, he got a email from PSA saying, we are no longer grading these. So now that put him in this weird predicament. He had one of the only two, or I think his was actually the only PSA 10 set that existed. The other one I want to believe had PSA 7s maybe, or I could be, this is where I could be confusing the details, but either way, there was only the one other set that was graded with the perforated edges, and then his one set with the straight edges. And because he was the one that got that email from PSA, he knew that PSA was no longer grading these. So it put him in this really, really weird predicament where, what do I do now? I have the only PSA 10 set that exists. I was asking $500 for this set. Nobody wants it. So he came up to me. He asked me my opinion. And you know my opinion. I stopped everything I was doing. We locked eyes. We made eye contact. And I pretty much said to him, I was like, whatever you do not sell these cards. Or not these cards. Do not sell these stamps. You cannot sell these stamps because the information that you have, no one else has. You have to hold on to these stamps like nothing else. As tight as you can. Do not let these stamps go. Because the second that people realize these things are no longer going to be graded by PSA, the prices of these things are going to go absolutely parabolic. And I told Gengar Den that, and I reinforced that to him while we were sitting down. And he's like, you know what? Okay, I'll take your word for it. So he decided not to sell them at Charlotte Collecticon. He's always, well, what should I do with them? I said, list them on eBay. See what people are willing to pay, but you gotta wait until people know that these stamps are no longer being graded. So, obviously, other people had sent those stamps away because, again, those stamps are not rare. But because PSA stopped grading them, people started talking about it. So his 5 stamps that he graded, that he hand-cut with scissors, all of them hit PSA 10. He sent them to eBay for auction after everybody found out, and they sold for $7,100. This is a man who couldn't sell these for $500 at Collecticon because at the time, nobody expected these to be rare. The second they were rare, they sold at auction the same set that he was trying to sell for $7,100. Think about that. This hobby is very fickle. I'm telling you that. That's what it boils down to. There's a lot of examples of that too, where when things might not be graded, the market goes crazy. An example in the recent time was, Celebrations Metal Charizards. The thing about Celebrations Metal Charizards is PSA was grading them, CGC was grading them. Then once they encapsulated them, those Metal Charizards started flaking and getting damaged in the PSA 10 cases, in the CGC cases. And because of the PSA insurance policy, these cards started selling for, a couple $1,000 each. So because they were first to market, and then PSA said, okay, we're not grading them anymore. CGC said we're not grading them anymore. Prices of those things skyrocketed. Learn from history. There is a chance this shit is going to get graded again. But it's all about understanding the market. Even though I think that coming down the line in the relatively near term, I do believe PSA is going to start grading those stamp box stamps again. I don't see why they wouldn't. Because it doesn't make sense that they were grading them. Now they're not grading them unless it's PSA grade stamps. It's not a big deal. I do believe that is going to happen again in the future. But right now, the market can't handle stuff like this. The same way they weren't able to handle that Metal Charizard no longer being graded. Do you know how many times and how many forums and how many Reddit groups and how many Discord groups I saw people talking about those Metal Charizards saying how they're going to be such great investments because PSA's not grading them anymore, CGC's not grading them anymore, and it's like, no. That's not what PSA said. That's not what CGC said. They were just saying they were going to research a way to encapsulate them. That's all PSA said. They didn't say they were never grading these things again. They just said that they were going to try to find something that worked. And then given enough time, they did. And now, those metal Charizards and those metal Pikachus from the Celebrations UPCs, they're still valuable. But in comparison to the all-time highs of those cards, where that crazy thing was going on and people thought they couldn't grade them, sure, the prices have drastically dropped from there, but those prices shouldn't have existed in the first place. Same thing with these stamp box. $7,100 for a set of 5 in PSA 10. Like, if they start grading those things again, which in my opinion they will, maybe in 3 years from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, when PSA doesn't grade those stamps and those, and like that is literally the only PSA 10 set that exists in the entire world, and now it's going on half a decade to a decade later, then I will say, you know what, I was wrong. Whoever made that $7,100 purchase, maybe in fact that was actually kind of a good purchase, because I know just the fickleness of the hobby or the market. But it doesn't matter what happens from now to then. Like, the gains have been made. That Carpe Diem S mindset had already been done. And they did something, and the same thing that Professor Oak did, the same thing that Gengar Den did, is they just noticed an area in the market that was underutilized, and they capitalized on it. And that's the thing. And these sales happen in the last year. I just told you that Professor Oak made that video 11 months ago when he talked about his PWCC sales. And now, you know what? I am curious, just because, you know, I think of Professor Oak and I think of like, I follow him. I like know his channel, but I am curious, like, how many views that video actually originally got. So I'm going to go to his webpage, or his YouTube page, and I just want to look. So that original video, the video that I quote all the time, that he made 11 months ago, it only got 351 views. So I was one of those views, maybe 2 of those views, to be honest with you, because I probably went back and watched that video more than once. And then what did I do? I watched that video and I said, oh my God, this is one of the smartest things I've seen somebody do in this hobby in a very long time. And then I went out and I bought a shitload of decks. I got all the decks, and then I graded an absolute shit ton of those cards. I'm probably, maybe not anymore, but definitely at one point in this hobby, I was the #1 grader of old maid cards in the entire world. Meaning I, at one point, guaranteed you, I had easily graded the most. Somebody has probably far surpassed me by this point, if anybody's graded like in the thousands of them, but I've definitely still to this day graded 100 of them. I have a box right, where is this? This is, I mean, just this box alone is all old maid cards that are just waiting to be sold. Like, I have an entire box of just this many of just that I haven't been able to move. And that is, and I've cycled through my inventory on multiple times. In Charlotte Collecticon alone, I've sold probably close to 100 of just those old maid slabs alone. I had one PSA submission of 70 cards, and I damn near ran through most of like the characters in there. That's why a lot of this box is honestly like just tons of doubles. Like, I pulled out a Meowth just now. I mean, the amount of Meowths that I have is, I don't know, let's see how many just in Meowths I have. So this is just Meowths. Like, I have a freaking ton of these cards. Like, and just multiple. So just in Meowths, that's 1, 2, oh wait, no, there's some Jigglypuff stuck in there. Hold on, I lied. Somehow 3 Jigglypuffs got stuck in there. But in just in Meowths, I'm still sitting on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and then that was another. So this is just the Jigglypuffs that slipped through, was 5 Jigglypuffs, but I still have 10 Meowths that I'm sitting on, and I've sold, I don't even know, a countless Meowths, countless of these Jigglypuffs. Maybe I have to organize this box a little bit better. But, no, I've cycled through so many of those cards, and I owe every single penny I've made off those cards to Professor Oak, and it was all because I watched one of his videos where he showcased his sales, and I recognized it as soon as he did it. I looked at the cards. First of all, I'm not going to pretend like I knew that these existed. No clue. Never saw them before, and I saw what he did, and I said, you know what? There's something there. I said, this is one of the most genius things I've ever seen. And then I watched the sales that like original Mew sold for, $222. I saw that the Gengar sold for $177 before buyer's premium. And I was just like, there's something to this. I think people will want these cards from now until a long time ago. And, I used a little bit of like my knowledge of the history of this hobby. And one of the decks that really stick out is in 1999, they had like a lot of Japanese like poker cards, just, like actual playing cards. Aces, kings, jacks, queens, 10 through 2, like actual playing cards. And at the time, somebody was able to corner the market, and I knew that this existed, and you still see these cards come up today. And they sent a lot of those cards to Beckett. And at the time, like, again, they're not Pokemon cards, they were just playing cards. But they sent them to Beckett, they still had Pokemon on it, and a lot of these playing cards hit Beckett Black Labels. Now, the thing is, in Pokemon, the Pokemon hobby just had no clue how to handle a Black Label. Definitely didn't know how to value a Black Label. So when these very, very original poker cards got sent to Beckett, because Beckett would grade at the time pretty much grade anything, and still to this day, Beckett will kind of grade anything. That's why you'll see cards like Shout Out to Basic Trainer and the Pony Chew. That's why they'll still authenticate cards like those and still encapsulate cards like those. But at the time, Beckett was the only one that would grade these poker cards. So they had fan favorite Pokemon on it. There were different variations of the decks, but again, at the time, it was still relatively niche. These decks were originally released in 1999, so there was definitely a little bit of time, so a lot of these decks were open. They were not as easily sourceable as like old maid cards. I just told you, you could walk into Pokemon centers, actually still to this day, and pick up those old maid decks in bulk. But by the time people started grading those 99 poker card decks, there wasn't many on the market, and if they were, you had to kind of search for them. It wasn't like you would go on eBay and see 100 listings. Maybe you would see like 5 or 10, but they just bought them all out, and they corner that market. Well, what happened was they sent them to Beckett, and a lot of them hit Black Labels. And I just told you, the market, the Pokemon hobby, didn't know how to handle Black Labels because they were just not familiar enough with it. So what happened? Those very, very early Black Labels sold for crazy premiums. And then there was a gold rush that happened with all those cards. And sadly, I wasn't part of that initial gold rush of those cards. So I never got to capitalize on that play. But I knew about that play. I knew about the history of the play. I knew how people cornered the market. I knew how people were first to market. I knew how people couldn't handle the Black Label. I knew how people couldn't handle the Beckett Pristine Gold Label 10, and like how all these cards are holding premiums. And still to this day, I bet you could go on PWCC or go on eBay and type in 1999 Pokemon poker card or whatever, and you're still going to see a listing of one of those, and you're going to still see high prices of them because people still to this day want those, even though by this point those cards have been graded into crazy numbers. Like, there's still crazy premiums to it, but they lasted forever. And I took that and I was like, this could be a play like that. Now, will this be a play where these cards are going to be hundreds of dollars in the future? No. But will this be a play where there will be margin on the bone for the very, very near term into the long term? And I said, yeah. And you know what? The thing is, there's still margin to be on those cards. The sad part is, I made that video yesterday talking about how James from Z&G Emporium, again, if you guys don't know, if you guys send cards to James from Z&G Emporium, I now have a deal with them where if you put a note in the package that says PK sent you, I'll get a little commission for anything you send them. And that was because of that video that I made talking great about them. Again, terrible system. There's no way anybody writes a little slip of paper in there that says PK sent me. It's a terrible system. We'll never know who sends him cards, but it still exists. So if you guys do that, shout me out. And real quick, this video is not sponsored by Z&G Emporium, but one of the things I talked about when I talked about James's consignment services, I talked about Beckett because we're on the Beckett train right now. One of the reasons I send cards through Z&G for Beckett, because people were asking me, like, why am I just sending it myself? Beckett charges you right away. PSA will charge you when you get your grades back, and usually like about a week before they ship out your cards to you. Sometimes less is when PSA will hit your credit card. So if you don't have like crazy money up front, especially if you're sending in like 100 cards, 100 cards at 19, I think it's 19 or 18 with subgrades and 17 or 16 without. But if you send in at $19 for Beckett with subgrades and you send in 100 cards, that's $1,900 that you have to put that money up front and just wait for that return to come back. And Beckett, who the hell knows when? I don't know. I've just heard horror stories about Beckett. Never submitted, but still. $1,900 of your money that's going to be tied up. Again, that's why I send those cards through James. But he's not sponsoring this video, but we do have that deal. If you send him any cards, and put a note that PK sent you. But yeah, it goes back to just all this shit is just Carpe Diem, seizing the day. And this is the thing too. I'm watching people do plays like this still to this day. Now, the problem is I just told you the old maid play existed. Those decks were originally released in 2019. It took till the end of 2023, 11 months ago. So we're in October of 2023. It was November 2022 that the first person ever like sold those cards at market. And it took close to 3 years for somebody to realize that. There's still stuff happening right now in this market today that are being underutilized, that people are not doing. When you get into these deep Discord groups and stuff, people will show you like some cards that they're great in, like these random phone cards, random, like, there's a lot of cards right now. I just put it that way. There's a lot of like emerging markets in Pokemon. The problem is when you get out of the actual main expansion, that main TCG, the buyer pool dries up for some of this stuff. So what you need to do is you need to not just find like a very niche item that has a very narrow buyer pool. You need to find a very niche item that has a huge, massive buyer pool. And again, these old maid cards are examples of cards that have like a niche. It's a niche card, but a huge buyer pool. Like, people love Chansey. People like cute art Chansey. People like cards like this. It's just, that's how it boils down to. And there's some stuff going on right now. I'm not talking about these plays because some of them, I don't even know if PSA is going to grade them or not. But, okay. So, that was what I wanted to do today. I really wish I got Professor Oak to come on because I wanted to hear his thought process through it. I wanted him to be able to walk us through it. And we might have to have Professor Oak on the near term, but problem is I didn't want to put this video on the back burner. Again, I know I'm saying what I said earlier in the video, but I know a lot of people are just joining in live right now. I wanted to put this video on the back burner, but I couldn't because of the news that came out yesterday. And tomorrow's video, I really got to talk about the Chinese market because it's something that is becoming more and more near and dear to my heart. And there's some plays that are happening right now. Some cards that were super, you already know the box I'm talking about, but cards that were super exclusive in Japan were ended up, not just the collection boxes, but some of like the trophy cards that they had in China. And yeah, I think I don't want to give away too much of tomorrow's video, but I think if you guys are interested in that market, that is going to be what a lot of tomorrow is going to be. And we're going to get deep down the rabbit hole with a few of these things. And I'm going to at least give you all the information that I currently have. Again, anytime I talk about the Chinese market, I will always give you like a huge warning at the beginning of that video tomorrow is everything that I've heard is all secondhand, meaning I am not in China. I am not standing in line in these stores. I am not doing the pre-orders. Everything I buy is on the secondary market. All the information I hear is handed down to me, and you know that game of telephone when you're a little kid. Pick up the phone, one person tells one person, he tells another person till eventually it makes it to you. And usually while the overall gist of that story might be the same, there could be pieces missing. So that will be like the caveat I give you. But I've heard a lot of like the stuff that's going on right now, the way some of these people are sourcing cards. And then, you know, there's like little nichey things going on too. I get a lot of questions about even mass-produced Chinese promos. Mass-produced being as simple as like the Detective Pikachu promo that's recently being released. So it's that Pikachu with the Growlithe artwork. The Japanese ones went crazy high. The Chinese ones are in huge abundance. They come out very similar to like the SV001. Had the same sort of release. You had the Japanese SV001 promo, and then the SV001 promo for the Chinese came in that little packet. I don't have a packet near me. And usually I have everything near me, but I don't have one of those packets near me. But yeah, I want to talk about those. There's a lot. I haven't talked about that market in a while. So, anyways. Yes. Anyways, I'm going to scroll up to the top of the chat. I see we got Science Guy 87. So yesterday's video, if you guys caught the end, Science Guy 87 won the giveaway. We ended up going in the Rattle Discord, opening up. He did end up pulling one full art out of those 3-pack blisters. So it was an okay. I mean, Fusion Strike is pre-trainer gallery, so it's bigger go home. But I was really hoping we could pull in that Gengar. I was really hoping we could pull that Espeon. But Even that Espeon, I was talking about that promo from the 3-pack blisters, and I was talking in the Rattle Discord. I'm like, do you guys know how much this Espeon promo cost in a PSA 10? And people were like, what, like $30, $40? And I was like, no. You should go on eBay right now. Everybody out there, do yourself a favor. I'm not going to tell you the dollar amounts because I want you to be as surprised. Go on Espeon promo, Black Star promo from the 3-pack blisters from Fusion Strike. You'll see how much those things are selling for. They're selling for hundreds upon hundreds of dollars. And again, make no mistake about it, those things are not easy to grade. There's a reason why that pop is so low. There's a reason why there's a premium to that. But if you're getting really good at pre-grading, if you bought a bunch of those 3-pack blisters, you get to be picky and choosy. You get to look at the front of them. You get to find the well-centered one. You're not going to be able to see the back, but at least you can do that with 3-pack blisters. You can look at the centering, okay? This centering on this card is a 10. Now let me open it up. Let me look at the back, and let's see how screwed up the edges are. And shout out to Cool Trainer Ryan. Let's see if all these cards are factory fuck. I'm not going to give away Cool Trainer Ryan's video today, but in CTR's video today, he pulled an absolute monster of a card. It's very rarely that I text CTR when he pulls a card, but you better bet your ass, as soon as I was watching that video and I saw him pull what he pulled, I messaged him, and all I did was just like, dude, congrats. And he was pretty happy about it. I mean, that's a card, if you like Pokemon, that's one of those dream cards to pull. And I don't want to spoil it, but it's worth the watch. Like, it was one of the coolest cards I've seen pulled in a very, very long time. And in fact, to be honest with you, off the top of my head, I can't even tell you when the last time that card was pulled. So it was a very cool moment, and I was happy to, in a way, be part of it by being able to watch it real time, like the day that video was released. And that's one of the things cool. Like, obviously you can't be you're not in the room, but you can still be part of it if you've watched it early enough, because that poll will be one of those things that I'll talk about in the future. People will talk about in the future, and that card will probably be talked about for years and years to come as like the last time that card was pulled, or one of the biggest cards that were pulled. Like, it will be in videos. People will talk about it. It's very cool when stuff like that happens. It's the same way as when somebody pulls like a first edition base set Charizard. Like, people talk about that. People remember that. It ingrains itself and burns itself into your memory in a way. And CTR's pull today was definitely one of those. So we got Bruce City TCG. CJ Dowwork said, hey, McNick, #1 mod in the game. Always there. Giving Professor Oak the shout out too. Let's see. I like this. His name is Pokemon Sucks. How did you get that one through by YouTube? But I like it. He said Pokemon Sucks is here, yeah. Busy Bee said, hell of a week of content. Let's go. Dude, I have a lot of content that I have to push out right now. I told you, I got a lot of video ideas going on in my head. There was like a whole week period where I didn't make videos because I wasn't really feeling good. I couldn't really breathe. RSV. I'm much better now. I could actually talk. I could speak. And I don't feel like absolute dog crap anymore. But during that time, it was painful not making videos. And there's a couple times I wanted to just hop on and turn on the channel and just be coughing up a lung and stuff for you guys. But I didn't. But because that backlog happened, so now I got all these video thoughts floating around in my brain. I just got to get them out. And like, again, tomorrow's video is going to be the Chinese ones. If you guys don't like the Chinese talk, I'm sorry. But I got a lot of stuff I got to get off my chest about that stuff too. Zarlurkin92 said, PK, I hope you and the family are doing well. We are all healthy. Thank God. It took a while, but we're all healthy. Robert Hayes says, you see Ryan's poll? Yep, I was just talking about that awesome poll. Eggplant said, what did I miss so far? We just talking about the backstory of old maid cards. So if you want a little history lesson, when were the first ones graded? Where were the first ones originally sold, which was PWCC? And again, what were the original sold prices for those cards going down the line? Gengar, and these are all before buyer's premium. Gengar, $177. Mew was $192. Eevee, $86. Squirtle, $67. Charmander, $59. Top player, $48. Bulbasaur, $41. And those original couple cards sold for a total of $668. And the original cost for each one of those cards, 48 cents. For a total of $3.36. So, it's a pretty cool story. And it's one of my favorite stories. And, you know, when you love this hobby, I don't consider myself in any way like a curator of this hobby, but I like the thought of that, being able to sometimes curate information and put it out to people. Like I just told you, that original video that Professor Oak put out didn't even have 400 views on it. So because maybe a lot of people didn't watch that original video when he showed his original sales, the problem is maybe sometimes you do have to curate that information. Or maybe when I talked about those poker cards originally being graded, like how they were graded through Beckett, they hit black labels, the market wasn't able to like know how to price black labels, even though they were easy black labels, easy to get. I guess it's important sometimes to curate that. And there's certain people out there that have a lot of this information. It's just a matter of getting it out. And I think sometimes we take for granted what we think maybe people do know versus what people don't know. Or maybe sometimes that they lose, a little bit of that history. Like just today's video, I talked about FPO cards. How many people out there know what 4-position only cards are? How many people know that they came out of legendary collection packs, that there was only 5 cards in each pack, that they were actually expedition cards? Which were the FPO cards? How did Rusty TCA Gaming originally source those cards? Like, maybe we take for granted that people know all that story. Or the same thing with the match print cards. What were they? What was the card stock made out of? Why was it different than an actual playing card? Were they graded? Were they not graded? What are the stories behind those? How many of each card exist? Is it 2 cards of each? Is it 3 cards of each? Is it Expedition? Is it Aquapolis? Is it Skyridge? Everyone knows all the answers to that, but maybe people don't. So maybe sometimes it is important to curate that information, but I don't want to tell that story because that's Rusty's story to tell. So, Rusty, if you're out there, I know Rusty has made videos on these topics in the past. But, Rusty, if you're out there and you find some time, I know you're a very, very busy man, but if you can make a video, like, in the next couple days where you just go over the story again, because Rusty's a curator in this hobby. Rusty's a curator of a lot of information, and Rusty might say, well, I already have a video on this topic, but that video, like the FPO video, I looked on Rusty's channel like a couple years ago, and at the time, that FPO original video that he made was released 5 years ago, but that was years ago at this point. So Rusty put out his original FPO video probably like 7 or 8 or probably 8 years ago. Think about that. Rusty put the FPO video out 8 years ago. How many people have gotten back into the hobby since then and weren't watching Pokemon content 8 years ago? So even though a lot of people take this stuff for granted. So Rusty, if you're out there, can you please make an update video on both the FPO cards and match print cards? Because it's important that you're a curator, man. So like, give everybody like a backstory of that. And yeah, I think it will be cool. And I think some people not really care. I don't think some people just don't care about the history of the hobby enough. But I think there is a large enough majority of the people out there that they are interested in the backstory of this hobby, and they do want to know where a lot of these original cards were sourced from. And honestly, Rusty was a guy doing the sourcing. So Rusty, let's see a video, man. Let's see an update 8 years after the fact on FPO cards. Number 1 mod in the game said, don't forget to like and subscribe. Yep. So we got Garen M. Andrea says, did this live just started? It's been going on for 38 minutes. You have oldest card you've had since kid. Ezard Lazy Gaming said, maybe he's asking, what is my oldest card I've had since I was a kid? A lot of those, that Charizard that's on there right there is my Charizard from when I was a kid. I have my original, 102 base set cards. I did have the complete set when I was, that's a lie. I didn't have the original 102 base set. I never pulled the Raichu as a kid. That was one of the cards that I never had. But I have like my original 102 that I've put together that's in a binder that's separate than everything else. And at one point in this hobby, I was trying to complete a master set in PSA 10 of a combination of first edition base, shadowless, and a couple unlimiteds thrown in there. But I scrapped that goal, and I sold off all those 10s, and then I just kept my base set as a kid. So all the original cards I pulled, I still have that original binder. I still have all my original bulk too, and it's still stored the same way as when I was a kid. And in fact, if I don't know. Oh, it's actually that's funny. It's in front of me. So this is like an original deck of cards from when I was a kid. And if you look, you can even see on the back side, that's like a trainer card that literally got stuck to the case and was ripped off. So looking at this, I don't know. I mean, this is like super brittle. Like the card got stuck. This is my like some cards that I had from a kid. None of them are sleeved. They're all just original base set. I think this was part of maybe a deck that I played as a kid because there's a bunch of trainers in here and stuff. But it is like a combination of... So it must be a combination of two decks. Because I know I ran like a fighting and fire deck. And then there's some like for a psychic deck that I guess I was trying to play as a kid. But these are my original cards. They're all original base set. None of them are penny sleeved. They will never be penny sleeved. I am fine with rifling through these cards. They will never be graded. They will never be sold. Some people say, will you ever die with some of your cards? That will be one of the cards I will die with. The dollar amount that you could put to light or that's probably not even light play. Those are moderate play cards. The dollar amount that you would have to put on those moderate play cards to take them out of my hands would be in the tens of thousands of dollars. So to answer your question, if that's what you're asking, what are the oldest cards I have as a kid is my original base set, like cards. Leaf Green Goblin said, anybody else getting absolute deals in auction? There are some deals going on in auctions, but shout out to Z&G again. He showed some world cards that recently sold, and some of those recent world card auctions sold for all-time highs. So while some you can still find deals in auction, it's crazy. Like even today, like at the time recording this video, there was an all-time high sale of a world's card. So makes you think, like, here we are, end of October 2023, and we saw an all-time sale of a card happen literally today. So it's wild to think about. So Comp DR said Professor O created markets. He did. The crazy thing is Professor O created that market, and I mean, he definitely did very well on those cards, and I know he graded a lot, and he did really good at those at Collecticons. I think Professor Oak said he sold out 100% of his inventory, that he brought it to one of the real early Orlando Collecticons. It was one of the only people there with old maid cards, which it's still wild to this day that people come up to me at Collecticons and they'd never seen them before, because I just think of them as like something everyone was doing, but they weren't. And do I talk about old maid cards a lot? Yeah, but when you watch my channel, like, that's something near and dear to my heart. Like, there's very few things that I get to get in on the ground floor of, you know, and probably most people watching this video, there are very few plays that you get the privilege that you get to get in on that absolute ground floor play. So that was one of them. So Jumble Fitz, congrats, man. He said he picked up a Skyridge Charizard box topper, dude. Very, very awesome. Congratulations. That is, that's awesome. So Leaf Green Goblin said, hell yeah, I'm targeting a lot of EX era, and I'm happy I took a break from buying until now. Yeah, there's a lot of good, there was a couple items I was looking at today. One of them, I forget, I could tell you what it, I didn't buy it, so I could tell you what I was looking at, but it was a Gengar Level X from Platinum, and it was in a PSA 9. I had it on my eBay watch list. I'll tell you what it ended at. But I thought about making a play for it because it was a really clean copy, and it was going for pretty low at the time. So, and then there was a ton of Australian Poke Tour Pikachus. If you guys didn't have or didn't own any Australian Tour Pikachus, there was literally like 20 plus that were up for auction tonight. So that was pretty cool to see. But nope. I think I deleted that Level X Gengar off my watch list. Why did I do that? Either way, somebody let me know down in the chat what it sold for. I don't want to spend too much time looking at my phone for an auction that ended tonight. But I looked at that. It was from Platinum, but it's a card I don't own, and it's a card I would like to own, so. Leaf Green Goblin said, how much bigger are box toppers compared to playable cards? Well, depends on the box topper. You can have a like Fire Red Leaf Green Charmander, which I could find. Let's see, Charmander. What was it? So like That's a fire red leaf green Charmander. It's number 113 out of 112. And technically this is a box topper, but you had some box toppers that were like this, but like all the original WotC box toppers. So box toppers started in Legendary Collection. So for Legendary Collection, you have those box toppers. Then Expedition, Aquapolis, Skyridge all had box toppers, and those box toppers are much larger. So, and then until eventually they get to the smaller ones. An example being like that Charmander from Fire Red Leaf Green. God, what is the Team Rocket Returns one? Oh, this is going to bother me. Thinking too hard. I mean, like, the Legend Maker has a Pikachu one. Yeah, but either way. Wait, Charmeleon? Yeah, the Charmeleon one's from Team Rocket Returns. So you might see these ones, and people list them as secret rares because they are technically secret rares. So, like, that Charmander is a secret rare. The Charmeleon from EX Team Rocket Returns is technically a secret rare. That EX Delta Species Pikachu from Legend Maker is still technically a secret rare. So the Legend Maker Pikachu, I think that's 93 out of 92. I think there's 92 cards in Legend Maker. Somebody fact check me in the chat, but I think that card's 93 out of 92. And those are all normal sized cards. So to answer your question, some of them are big, some of them are small. Let's see. Ooh, yeah. So Leaf Green Goblin said, we're still on stamps and stickers. Ooh, nobody said anything about grading stickers. If you're grading stickers, you might be finding something up. So CJ Dowwork said, so what's the next Old Maid play, PK? You'll know when I get my returns back. Once I get those returns back, I'll let everyone know that play exists, and then people can play catch up. Son of a Merc said, who told PK they had more Old Maids than them? Chef954, good to see you, my friend. Let's see. Randy Countryman said, hey, PK, thoughts on the Squirtle promo? Sustained price or another hype? Sustained price right now, unless we see a reprint. So you can go back on my channel, and I talked about that Squirtle promo before everyone. Like, I just want to, I'm going to go look. I got to remember. So go to my channel. So if you go back on lives and you go back and you just look for that Squirtle promo. So I made one a month ago, and I talked about it, and the title of the video was My Current Attention in the Pokemon Hobby, and I was talking about that Squirtle promo, because at the time, that Squirtle promo was $40, and I said, this is something I'm watching. It's very, very interesting. I'm keeping an eye on it, and then I talked about that Squirtle's promo. Let's see. When was the last time I talked about it? And then I talked about that. Oh my god, I talked about it a long time ago. Trying to look. When did I talk? Then I talked about that Squirtle promo. God. What did I title it? I have too many videos on my channel. That's the problem. And then I talked about that Squirtle promo 2 times before that. I talked about it, one, when I can't wait to watch this thing play out. That was one of the videos I talked about making. And then the first time I talked about it was when it found out that it was only going to be released with this the 151 UPCs, and I was like, this is going to be fascinating to watch this card play out. So I made 3 videos talking about that card. And dude, I got too many lives. I'm scrolling, I can't even find it. What the hell did I name it? I don't even remember what I named it. Sorry, don't remember what I named it. But yeah, I did talk about that card on multiple videos. So, to answer that question. Let's see. Next question. Mobile Prodigy said, folks now selling cars cleaning kits for cards to submit for Black Label. Oh, yeah. I don't recommend you guys altering cards. So Pole Father said, "Hey PK, don't forget it's your turn to bring the juice boxes to the next Cabal meeting." Oh, that's it? We just drink juice boxes? Okay. E4 Relk says, "PK videos are a must. I get new people watching every week. I can't push you hard enough. It's knowledge that's needed for this hobby." I appreciate that, man. Cam B8 says, "Hey, it's my favorite PokeTuber named Poke Knowledge Cards." So, thank you, Cam. Knowing that there could be another Poke Knowledge Cards out there. As long as I am number 1 out of 2. Giovanni said, "PK, how's it going?" It's going good. We're about to wrap this live up. Listen, I was like, this is going to be a short live. I'm just going to talk about the history of old maid cards because I really got to talk about these Chinese cards tomorrow. This is just going to be kind of like a quick live. Here we go. 50 minutes later, I'm almost an hour in. Oh my God, time goes by fast. But listen, guys, every single one of you, again, appreciate you. If you could do me one favor, smash that like button. If you haven't hit the like button, please, it's the only thing I ask. If you hit the like button, it might push this video out through the YouTube algorithm. And maybe somebody that's never watched this video will discover this channel because you hit the like button. And if you're new to this channel and you somehow made it to the end of a 51-minute long live and you're not subscribed, hit that subscribe button. I do a lot of these. If you're interested in the Chinese market, that will be tomorrow's video. Again, special shout out to Professor Oak. Thanks for making that old maid play happen. I wish you were able to come on tonight's video, buddy. I know it didn't work out. We'll do it again in the future. But for every person out there, listen, guys, appreciate every single one of you. And as always, I'll catch you on the next video.